Happy Thursday evening, everybody. How are we all doing? Mike Dewan alongside Jay Simmons for Region Football Weekly. Jay, a third of the way through
That's
the high
right.
school regular season. NFL is back in full swing. You had a good watching experience last Friday for your Chargers.
Yes.
Myself on Monday, not so much for the Chicago Bears. But Jay, we are back. 3 games in. High school football is all that matters here on the Region
Yes.
Sports Network. How are we feeling?
I'm feeling great. I mean, so a lot of roller coaster teams, a lot of teams on the right track, and some that are just heading south and heading south quickly. So it's going to be a great show. We got a lot of good games to cover today.
Definitely, Jay. As we enter into the second third of the season, obviously the first third, it's a time for non-conference opponents. Hey, who are these new players on these fields? Who are how are these teams going to gel together with these new faces? The second third of the season, Jay, what do you want to see from some of these teams that we're going to talk about here today? What do you expect maybe as the team kind of grows of the course of what is this long, but I mean, kind of a quick season as well.
Yeah, it's going by quickly. What I'd like to see from my team, or teams that is all of a sudden they start to gel together. They're solidified their positions. Some guys might have been dog fighting it out. 1A and 1B. Now all of a sudden, one of those two guys has stepped up into the right spot, and all of a sudden you know your team's character. You know your team's strengths. You know your team's weaknesses. Now you're solidifying the strengths, and now you're trying to bring up the weaknesses and trying to get those up there too as well. And you know where your team's going to hang their hat at. Or is your team a defensive team, offensive team? So now you're just starting to see it, and now all of a sudden, a lot of teams are. Well, the Doolin started their conference play this past week. Some of the other conferences are starting, last week, and most of them are going to be full swing this week. So it's going to be fun to watch.
No doubt about it. And yeah, like you said, these teams you gotta grow up pretty quickly, especially if those young pieces as well getting their first taste of Friday night action. Now it's kind of times for at least kind of my point. Hey, mistakes. Maybe they were a little bit acceptable in those first few games of your career now, and this goes for everybody, not just those new faces, but this second, third, especially.
That's right.
Let's cut down on those mistakes, Jay.
Yeah, especially the turnovers. That's the thing. Turnovers and penalties. You got to get rid of those, and this is the time to do it right here.
Well, let's start that second third of the season by looking at the games from Week 3 last Friday's action. Starting off, the Boone Grove Wolves took on the Bremen Braves. They lost 39-0. Boone Grove dropped to 1-2. The Battle of the Birds took place on Saturday. Two teams coming into the game undefeated at 2-0. Bowman Academy lost to the Lake Station Eagles, who've been putting up points 46-24 in favor of Lake Station. Jay, one of the 3 games on the Region Sports Network this past week was a 6v9 matchup. The 6th-ranked Chesterton Trojans traveled to Amesfield to take on the 9th-ranked Michigan City Wolves, and it was a tight game, 7-7 at the half. Jay, in the third quarter, that was all Michigan City, and they just about rode it on throughout the course of, again, that third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, and the thing is, they figured out Chesterton. Chesterton's one-dimensional offensively, shut them down, and all of a sudden they started going vertical and started beating Chesterton over the top, and got some big plays.
I mean, a little bit. I mean, for City, we talked about like Treniston Hart, who has been kind of that guy under center who was up there and kind of leading passing yards, and they got a receiver in Zaire McKinney, who was the leader in passing yards in the region. But this team did it more so on the ground, believe it or not, kind of beat Chesterton with their own medicine. 295 rushing yards for the Wolves. Some names to look out for. Jeremy Thurman, 100 yards on 15 carries with 2 scores. The aforementioned Treniston Hart had 91 yards on 11 carries in the score. Marion Evans as well, 64 yards, 7 touchdown. Michigan City has a lot of athletes, as they seem to do just about year in and year out. And Chesterton, they kind of hang their hat on. They got their guys, Andrew Goveas and Hunter Boyd, who had a solid third start under center. But Michigan City, when you have guys that you can keep fresh and cycle in throughout the games, it obviously showed kind of in the second half when they really took advantage of what looked to be kind of a depleted and, I guess, for lack of a better term, tired Chesterton program.
Yeah, definitely. And, like you said, when you get fresh bodies in there and all of a sudden you've got a steady 11 out there on defense, you got some guys that can break them and break them big and with some speeds and get downfield, boom, now all of a sudden that defense is tired. They're on their heels. They're catching instead of, pushing forward. So it really showed for Michigan City. Now I think Michigan City might be in that next tier.
And that's kind of where we'll get into on our next segment.
That's
with
right.
The Enigenberg Home Improvement Top 10. These two teams did a little bit of movement, as kind of the latter half did in that list, but that's for next segment. But we still got some games to go through. The East Chicago Central Cardinals dropped the game to the Calumet Warriors, the now undefeated Calumet Warriors, coming in at 3-0. The final score of that one, 28-16. in favor of the Warriors. The Hanover Central Wildcats got on the board for Coach Tony Bartolomeo. 28-0 was the final score. They took care of the Highland Trojans in the first game of NCC conference play. Another NCC game, the Andrean 59ers coming in at 4 in our poll last week. Put some points up on the board. Jay, a game for Andrean. We talk about their schedule every week, but you start with you take on the Lures last week at Maryville. Now, okay, no disrespect to the Cougars, but it's a team that they've had success with over the course of the years, and they showed it here tonight. Last Friday. 38-8 was that final. Andrean now moves to 2-1. A big game that we could definitely, you and I both talked about on the wrap-up show a little bit. Just how couldn't we? It was kind of one of those games circled, although we didn't do. It was a very interesting game, a game that could have really went both ways, and it went the way in the Lowell Red Devils. Again, the Lowell Red Devils took a trip to the Boneyard to take on the then fifth-ranked Griffith Panthers, and it was all RDP in this one, 42-14. Running clock was in effect. Jay, not to kind of recap what we said on the wrap-up show, but
Right.
it was a shock in this one, and to see Lowell get a win of that caliber, it's been a few years since they've gone into a place like that and kind of shocked the area. And Coach McKim obviously has his guys trending in the right direction in just his third game on staff.
Well, now all of a sudden he's got a win that he can hang his hat on, and now all of a sudden it's going to be a little bit more fun at practice. Now you're getting into conference play, so it's going to be a lot of fun to watch Lowell and see what they do progressing forward throughout the season.
Now, I should have done my due diligence searching this before, but one of the key playmakers of the Lowell Red Devils was a man by the name of Timothy James, sophomore running back, 102 yards, 13 carries, 3 touchdowns. Where's number 32? And I had to do a little bit of research. Could not find a story or anything, but Ike James also wore 32.
Yes, I was going to say that was familiar. Yes,
right. And I know I don't know if they're related, cousins or whatnot, or brothers, but for the Lowell fans out there, feel free to chime in, because if that is, he's obviously in his sophomore campaign running hard like that against a tough Griffith defense. Opposing defenses out there, another James is on the horizon. Coach McKim's got his guy in his backfield for sure.
Yeah, and the thing is, Lowell, it's always the next guy stepping up. One graduates, another running back comes in, and he's a chip off the old block.
That's how it is at RDP, and Coach McKim's got something brewing up there. We'll talk about Lowell even a little bit later in the show. Big shout out to Brody Kowinski as well. The dual threat quarterback did it on the ground with 98 rushing yards, 13 carries, and 3 touchdowns. 2 very eerily similar stats between James and Kowinski. A 1v2 matchup. We have plenty of highlights coming out for throughout the course of the week, and it was a 2v1 matchup. Maryville took the trip to the Dog Pound to take on Crown Point, and although this game was a little bit closer to what we've seen in years past, Crown Point did get the win, 35-21. Jay, although Maryville and they had some key performers like Michael Hill, who had to throw the ball 40 times for 347 yards and 3 touchdowns. This Crown Point team, from what I saw, they milked the clock. They limited Hill's opportunities, and again, this team, year in year out, they're going to win these games, and this team just knows how to win. Although how dominant they are in some games, they can win these close ones as well.
That's right, and they're averaging 31 points offensively through the first 3 weeks and only giving up 9 points. So kudos to Maryville for putting up 21. So it's something positive for Maryville to build on.
And I'll tell you what, this offensive line of Crown Point, although I believe I read that they're a little bit banged up. Austin Redding was a multiple-year starter who now had been sidelined with injury for the time being. It's led by Nolan Cicero, who's a Ball State commit, who's somebody we got to talk to in the summer, and he has his head on straight. He's a guy that he understands what Crown Point football is all about. His dad is his offensive line coach as well, so that's a fun dynamic. I'm sure he expects the most out of him, and they're leading to production. Again, Braden Shutt, another fantastic game, racking him up in his junior campaign, 139 yards with 2 scores. But the big star, Max Gurnick, a sophomore, 170 yards and a touchdown. Jay, again, we talked about this, having a practice room, having those, obviously a great supporting cast up front. But, I mean, these guys, it's kind of like what you just said about Lowell. There's always that next man up mentality.
That's right.
And it's obviously, it's what makes Crown Point great. And they're doing that once again this year.
Well, and they start from the ground up, and they got their Pop Warner leagues rolling, and they get these guys watching week in and week out, and then they get to be in the, like you said, in the practice room with them, and then on the game field they're working with these older guys. So a sophomore to step in at a big school like this, that's awesome, and they got nowhere to go but up.
And keeps the guys fresh too.
Right.
Keeps guys like Shutt fresh. two-headed backfield right there. Maryville's got one of their own in J.Q. Johnson and Cameron Jordan. We'll talk about Maryville later in the show, but still a promising team, although a 1-2 record. You can't have,
No.
we talked about quality losses and how that's a term that probably makes your skin crawl a little bit, but you can't have a much better 3-game stretch than Maryville does, despite a record that we haven't seen in quite some time.
Yeah, definitely. Maryville had some positives walking away from this one. Their offense keep with Hill 24 for 40. Did a nice job, almost 340 yards passing.
It's crazy.
It is, but the thing is, now all of a sudden you got to say, well, all right, we can throw the ball. We've got to make sure we get some balance in here, and they're gonna have to fight that and work with that throughout the season and try and fight to keep that balance.
Yeah, it was a senior-led O-line last year. I know you saw a lot
Yes.
of Maryville last year, so kind of reshuffling the
That's
deck,
right.
and hopefully something that's going to grow over time. Because obviously, like you said, for Maryville too, there's really kind of nowhere to go but up. I think
That's
this game
right.
is very, very important, and a lot of big field and implications. And although there was a long stretch of games to come after, interesting to see how both these teams kind of fare moving forward. But keeping things rolling here on Region Football Weekly, the third-ranked Hobart Brickies get a big win again over the Munster Mustangs, 41-7. Hobart moves to an unbeaten 3-0 record. Hobart faithful definitely liking that one, Jay. We'll talk about them later in the show. The Bishop Knoll Warriors took on the Whiting Oilers in a Jay, quite the spectacle over there at a new named stadium. It's named after Jeff Kane, the Hall of Fame, Indiana Football Hall of Fame head coach, so the most winningest coach in Whiting football history. And better yet, they got the win over their rival Bishop Knoll Warriors, 28-7. Also a cool kind of passing of the torch moment. Thomas Knight, who's now their interim head coach, a Whiting alum. I believe he was on that 2015 state runner-up team, which was also in attendance and honored that night. Just a super, super fun night for Whiting, one of our Total Team Effort Awards. And Jay, your experience, I know, again, that Whiting team in 2015 was great. They had a lot of great teams under Coach Kane.
Yes, they did.
What was your experience kind of, being in this industry during that time? And obviously, kudos to everybody at Whiting for renaming the field in his honor. It's now called, I think, Ray P. Gallivan Field at Jeff Kane Stadium. But Jay, your thoughts on, of course, the name change and his impact on Indiana football.
Well, and not only on Indiana football, but putting Whiting on the map
Yeah.
in terms of football, that's awesome. My first experience was going up there with Brian Jennings. We were still doing radio back in those days, and I had never been to a less than a 4A game before. At this point, and I coached at Lake Central and I played at Highland, so I was always around the big boys.
Yeah.
And it was fun to watch not only the intimacy of the crowd towards the field and the players playing both ways.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably had 8 or 9 guys playing both ways for both teams. So it was fun, old school football where some guys never left the field.
Yeah.
And if they did, it was for a glass of water and run back. Hey, your break's over 2 plays later. So
Right.
it was fun to watch that level of ball. And last year I think we did a Wheeler Whiting game. And it's fun to be at that smaller setting, not knocking the big schools, but it's just a little bit different of an atmosphere.
Sure.
It's, everybody knows everybody in the state,
Yep.
and it's fun. And, Whiting's a great facility and it's a beautiful field and right there on the lake. And I do remember this one play. It was 4th down and 1. And the other team had the ball and we're going for the first down. And a train came through and blew the horn. The entire offensive line jumped off sides, and the center was still sitting there with the ball. So home field advantage right there.
That train, I remember I played on that field I only played it on once. It was Pop Warner. So this was, early 2010s, and that's the one thing I'll take away from the field, which is a beautiful field.
Yes, great
and
facility.
obviously named in, a fantastic coach in Whiting football history. But that's the one thing I took away, the amount of trains. I think I counted probably, I'd say more than one hand in terms of how many trains. In a Pop Warner game, those games are typically quick, but it's a smaller school, like you said, but that's a big boy stadium.
Yes, it is.
Now named it, of course, Jeff Kane.
And you always got to throw on an extra layer of clothing, especially later in this football season, because you got that lake blowing straight off the lake, straight into the press box.
Yep.
And everybody opens up the windows and like, this is nice. And I'm sitting there freezing. It was 20-degree difference going from Highland to Whiting.
Right.
So it's
feel bad for the cameramen up there too, right? Those guys, the real troopers of the show. Moving on, a Duneland matchup. Jay, a game that you were at, but we'll keep it quick. Lake Central gets the win, 26-0 over their fellow Indians in the conference, the Portage Indians. Portage believe what failed to run a play in enemy territory.
That's
Lake
right.
Central, a good game to get back on track, and we'll talk about both these teams later. But Jay, again, keep it quick. Your thoughts on kind of this game? How kind of went up?
Just the key to me is watching Lake Central defense step up another week in a row. Last week, they played a really good team, but their defense slowed St. Joe or St. Joe Catholic or something from Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids Central.
Yes, yep. And they slowed them down defensively, but boy, this week they really stepped up defensively. Now all of a sudden, that defense has got offense. Let's get on the right track with us. So it's gonna be fun to see how they do.
Definitely, no doubt about it. Moving forward, Wheeler got a shutout victory again. Wheeler's clicking on all cylinders, 49-0 over the River Forest Ingots. The 10th ranked Morton Governors got the win over the Shepherd Astros from Illinois. Shepherd, a team that made the 7-8 playoffs in Illinois last year, but Morton got the win 42-20. We'll talk about Morton later. Valparaiso gets their first win of the season, 28-0 over the LaPorte Slicers. And the final game on the slate, the West Side Cougars got the win over the Hammond Centrals. They prevailed 48-0. Jay, we'll be back here on Region Football Weekly. Coming up next is the Enigenberg Home Improvement Top 10. A lot of shakeups, should be a good one. We'll be back here on Region Football Weekly on the Region Sports Network, the only game in town.
At Strachan Van Til, we believe grocery shopping should be simple. Now, shopping is easier than ever with our new and improved website. Find what you need fast. Browse your favorite products, add them to your cart, and check out in just a few quick steps. Choose between convenient in-store pickup or let us handle the heavy lifting. From our shelves to your doorstep, skip the lines, shop your way, and spend more time on what matters most. With our rewards program, enjoy incredible savings and personalized offers every time you shop. Shop online now at strachanvantil.com or download our app today.
Hi, I'm Crowell Company's Lantern Man. If you're a contractor, it's my job to make your insurance coverage simple and affordable. Because I know time is money, I'll come to your business. Certificates and bonds are a snap. Wherever you are, whatever business you're in, we've got you covered. As Crowell Company's Lantern Man, I'm your insurance superhero.
Crowell Company's insurance professionals. Highland, Merrillville, and Michigan City.
Thinking about what to do after high school? Consider a career with Boilermakers Local 374. As a Boilermaker apprentice, you'll earn while you learn. We offer excellent wages and benefits, and as part of our no-cost hands-on apprenticeship program, you'll learn from the best in state-of-the-art training centers and on the job. Become a union Boilermaker and get on your way to a great career. Find out more, visit www.local374.org or call 219-845-1000.
From lighting up Friday night football to powering the classrooms that shape the students of Lake County, IBEW Local 697 is proud to support our region's schools and the communities we call home. A career as a union electrician could be your next great move. Your next cap might be a hard hat. IBEW Local 697, powering futures, powering the region.
Four Seasons Mechanical proudly serves Northwest Indiana, providing quality, reasonably priced, reliable service. With a quality and comfort guarantee, the professionals at Four Seasons Mechanical offer a wide range of services in heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Whether it's residential or commercial, Four Seasons Mechanical is there 24/7. To find out more, the website is fourseasonsmechanical.com or give them a call at 219-756-7020. Four Seasons Mechanical, your indoor air quality specialist.
Flip the switch, a light turns on. Press the button, machines and instruments come to life. Touch the screen, communicate with the world. Simple tasks, guaranteed results, every second of every day. That's the power of power. And that's the power brought to you by the NECA contractors and electrical workers of Local 531.
Back here live from Athletic Performance Factory this Thursday evening. Mike DeWan, Jay Simmons, Justin Cole, our fantastic producer, here for Region Football Weekly. And Jay, Enigenberg Home Improvement Top 10 presented by Enigenberg Exteriors. Going to be a good one here. A lot of shakeup.
Well, let's see what the committee voted on.
I guess we should, but we got to start off with our outside looking in. And Jay, a team that probably wasn't on many people's bingo cards to be in the outside looking in. The Lake Station Edison Fighting Eagles, first 3-0 start since 1972. They went undefeated that year. They had 466 rushing yards in their previous win against Bowman Academy. This was a team that has, again, they run the football a lot. David Parker and Oscar Alderson, 3 touchdowns each. Jay, 1972. Talking about making some history for the Fighting Eagles.
That is crazy. How did you dig that one up? You had to pull out the old archives or what?
Yeah, John Harrell. I had Chris Ramirez, our executive producer, Chris Ramirez, next to me, and he, him and I were kind of talking about the Lake Station Fighting Eagles, and I kind of thought to myself, 3-0, okay, we could maybe get into the 2000s. So I went to John Harrell, who only goes back to 1994. And then, Chris said that 1972, that's probably the day. And they had a couple 2-1 starts, but never 3-0. And 1972, how old were you, Jay? 20? 25?
I was 8.
8, okay.
All
Who's
right.
counting?
Come on, man.
Who's
Come on.
counting? No, a big shout out to the Lake Station.
All right, yeah, how about
Fighting Eagles, the Lake Central Indians, we talked about 26-0 win over Portage. But in their 2 combined wins, Jay, 0-6 record. They beat Munster and Portage. Lake Central now playing a tough team we'll talk about later. But that defense has kind of come around, and now the offense saw a little bit more production. The growth of this team over the course of the season, what do you kind of want to see now gearing up for a game that you'll be at? We'll talk about a little bit later.
That's
but
right. I got to see the defense is solid. Now I got to see that offense step up. They've got to get some production. They've been leaving the defense on the field quite a bit in some key moments.
Chesterton, one of the biggest fallers on our list. They were previously rated 6th, and then kind of that let down to Michigan City. And a couple teams behind them getting their respective wins. Chesterton kind of becomes that team that is hoping to get back in the top 10. Again, they got a rushing attack and a young quarterback that'll only get better over the course of the season. The Westside Cougars, again, that 48-0 win over Hammond Central. They get out to a 2-0 record. Still some room for improvement for that Westside squad, and some bigger games coming up here in the future for Westside. The Hanover Central Wildcats, again, that first win for Coach Bart LeMayo over Highland. 3 interceptions for Lucas Valiska in the win over Highland. They have to gear up and get ready for a game that we'll talk about later in the show. But Hanover Central, to get that for Coach Bart and coaching staff,
That's
and maybe
right.
some new faces on that staff, to get that first win, Jay, it's special. You probably get a game ball, of course, but it's to get that off your chest too, especially again those first 2 games, absolutely brutal.
Yeah,
but to get in the right track,
they definitely jumped into the deep end of the pool on week 1 and 2, and it's good for Coach Bart LeMayo. He's been with the program a few years, so he knows all the kids. He knows what's going on. He knows the lay of the land. It's not like it's coming in brand new, but as the head coach, his system, his way, he's excited about getting that first victory.
And a team that is oh so close to entering the top 10, the Calumet Warriors, after a 3-0 start, which is their first since the 2022 season. They still the thing is, Jay, that they've won these games and they got a schedule looking ahead. You don't want to look too far ahead, but they got some matchups coming up here that they could kind of keep this unblemished streak going and definitely get in the top 10.
Oh, definitely. They're at Highland and Bowman and Whiting, so it could be a 6-0, and they're doing like this. They're knocking on your door right now. They're saying, "Hey, we want to be in that top 10."
And then they got they do have some tough teams in the GSSC later, but watch out for Calumet again. We keep saying it, but a new look team, and Charles Salary obviously building something great over there. One of the biggest fallers as we enter in our Enigenberg Home Improvement Top 10, presented by Enigenberg Exteriors. The 10th rated Griffith Panthers, who were previously 5th last week. Jay, this team dropped 5 spots after that performance against Lowell. Is that too much of a drop? Now, again, you look at Griffith versus Lowell. Griffith is that 3A school. They're technically playing up, but, this was a game, probably the consensus and maybe what you heard around town, the murmurs. Right. This would be a close game maybe, but Griffith, the way they were performing, you probably didn't expect that.
No, I didn't. Well, the thing is, when you look at who they played the first 2 weeks, they played Munster and Highlands, so they're at the bottom tier of their conference. So it's not a huge shock. It is a shock in the way the score finally shook out. Coach is going to bounce them back this week, and they play Boone Grove this week, and Boone Grove is only scoring 9 points and giving up 35 defensively. So it should be a good team to play for a bounce back week. Whether or not they win or lose, it's still going to be good.
Right, they gear up for now conference play. You mentioned they're at Boone Grove, and they take on River Forest, who's going through a little bit of a change. East Chicago Central has been playing some good football. Gary Westside, and then kind of it ramps up in week 8 and 9. They go to Calumet, then to Wheeler. But if Griffith, you talk about the response. If they could kind of get back on track and build up some confidence, who knows? They could be knocking on GSSC's door once again.
That's right. Get some momentum going into weeks 7 or 8 or 9.
That will be the plan for Coach Phil Mason and his squad. Moving up the list is the 9th-rated Morton Governors. Again, this was a team that is now 2-1. Jay, I mean, an 0-4 start to the season last year, and I'll tell you what, I mean, looking at the roster on paper, look of last year's squad, I mean, 13 college signees. You had an SEC wide receiver in LeBron Hill, Holland Harris, who's playing football at UIndy under center, Deshaun Woods, a Hammond Central transfer that's an instant impact, and you got guys like Cameron Miller in his junior season, who's going to be committed to Kentucky. And it's interesting to see kind of how this team has really improved. And I mean, this was the 9th spot was kind of a pipe dream for them at this time last year. But to see this so far and to get a big win against Shepherd last week, again, we talked about it last time. Things are kind of trending in the right direction for this year's Morton squad.
Yeah, they're putting the pieces together as the season goes along. We talked about it, right at the opening, that as the season progresses, this is the weeks that teams, start to gel. I mean, looking at Morton, they're scoring 32 points a game, giving up the 15 defensively, and their only losses by 1 point to Chesterton. So everything is going good for Morton right now.
Yeah, a lot of offensive star power. Jalen Arnold's a big guy to mention on the defensive side. One of those fantastic linebackers of their own. Martese Smith's kind of a good corner guy and do-it-all guy for them. But I mean, these guys are young as well. Again, Davian Terry, we'll talk about the senior running back, the one and done over there in Morton, the Hammond Central transfer, had 10 carries for 185 yards and a touchdown. But this connection between Amari Price, a freshman quarterback, and a sophomore receiver in Amir Daniels, out of Price's 133 passing yards, 105 went to Amir Daniels. To have those two potentially, on your offensive unit for the next 3 seasons, these guys could shatter some records of some Morton greats.
Oh, definitely. And the thing is, now they're through that Friday night, jitters and stuff like that. So it could be crazy going through the rest of the season. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this team. I think they're going to throw up a lot of points going throughout the rest of the season. It's going to be a fun one to watch.
And they got kind of a favorable schedule moving forward. And again, the small conference, and looking at the state of East Chicago Central and Hammond Central, it's their conference to lose. But then you want to really start playing some good football. And they got a good latter half of their schedule where I know they take on Hobart historically, and I believe they may have another tough. They got a tough opponent this week as well, but they really want to kind of gel together and really get going to hopefully make some noise in the 5A sectional. The lone new team in the top 10 is the 8th-rated Lowell Red Devils. We talked about them beating the Griffith Panthers, and Casey McKim, a signature win, like you said, Jay. I guess our first question is Lowell back?
RDP? Hey, the way they played this week, now that they're going to have some tests moving forward, through their conference, but hey, this is a great stepping stone, a good launching point to get into the conference play.
It feels like it's been some time since Lowell has kind of had one of those signature wins, and it's sometimes it's one of those teams that if they're playing well, kind of the state of Northwest Indiana football, kind of feels like everything's going okay. But it's been, Jay, probably their biggest win, we could say. I mean, they won in 2022 at Andrean to force a 3-way tie in the NCC, and their last sectional championship win came in 2021 against Hobart. So I think we could probably safely say, this is their biggest win since maybe 3 years ago at Andrean, potentially even up the conference. But it's been quite some time.
Yeah, and hey, they're trending in the right direction. They're building off of this win. Let's see how they play out. They got some tough ones coming up.
And the first year, from what we've seen historically for a head coach, it's oftentimes there's some challenges you got to work through, and there's been some solid first year head coach hires. Gary Richardson has the Bowman team, moving in the right direction. Tony Bartolomeo, of course, of Hanover Central, getting his first win and raising that standard from what his predecessor had before him. And Rick Good, he's going to do some great things at that Bishop Knoll program, just to name a few first-year head coaches. But Casey McKim, I'll tell you what, to get a win like that and to already kind of have his program moving in the right direction, he might be kind of that guy to kind of break that first-year coaching, the stuff that goes behind where, hey, they may not be successful this year, but watch out next year. But so far, they want to try and win now.
Well, I don't think he walked in with the covered bear at Lowell. He's going to install his style, his manner, and how the kids wants the kids to carry themselves. But he still walked into a pretty darn good program that was led by Coach Kilmer. So he's just putting the pieces together in a different way, the way he wants. So we'll see how it goes from here on out.
Just about all he's done at New Prairie was win, and he's so far is keeping up that trend at Lowell. Moving up the list is the number 7 Michigan City Wolves, previously rated at number 9, been kind of making their way through this list throughout the course of the season. With their passing attack that has been very potent in the first 2 weeks of the season, did not do so well against Chesterton, but it was a rushing attack and a defensive game that Michigan City really kind of showed and put on this Chesterton team. The defense, 6.5 sacks, 12.5 tackles for loss, even had a block punt in that third quarter where they really opened the gates. And Jay, offense, typically over the course of the season, they're going to, again, get better after the defense. And what we've seen from Michigan City, we saw them force turnovers in that Week 1 win against Hanover Central. But the defense, although replacing a guy like Adrian Holly, who's playing Big 12 football at Kansas, the defense has some cats here so far, Jay.
Yes, they do. Well, you don't forget they're playing against a sophomore quarterback at Chesterton, so I'm sure they were blitzing and running some guys off the edges. A lot of confusion out there for the young quarterback. And hey, when you got that kind of speed up front defensively, it's tough to get them and block them. And you saw that in the score.
And you're just pinning your ears back. You want to try and get to that sophomore quarterback, especially. Jay, 295 rushing yards as a team, although the offense really did not do much in terms of passing. I think only about 85 passing yards for Trinity Hart. How much is a rushing attack like that? We saw the same kind of production in the first week against Hanover Central, and now again almost another 300 rushing yard game. That only makes things a little bit nicer for that passing game.
Definitely.
That kind of was sluggish.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden now you open up the play action passing with almost 300 yards rushing. Play action passing as you're moving forward through the Duneland Conference, that's always huge. Get those guys stepping up in the wrong directions and getting that ball over the top. They can do it just as well as they run. But hey, if you can run the ball, control the clock, keeps that defense off the field, especially some of these tough teams like Crown Point and Maryville and stuff. You want to keep their offenses off the field as much as possible.
And the thing about Cody French and Michigan City, they tempo. They want to keep your defense, huffing and puffing. And like we said in the open, they have some fresh legs. A lot of guys taking handoffs, and a lot of guys that could really slice and dice you. The 6th-rated team on our Enigenberg Home Improvement Top 10, a team that keeps on moving up, are the Wheeler Bearcats. 49-0 win over River Forest. Their first 3-0 start since 2015, a decade ago. This is a team, probably the best scoring differential in the area, 134-7. Now that said, Jay, as we kind of get to this, first third of the season, they played South Central, who's going through a little bit of a change. Hinkey Valley, who again 0-3 record, and now River Forest, a new head coach. Although you got to play who's on your schedule, Wheeler. Although a little bit more, again, a favorable schedule kind of coming up. A confidence boost, I guess. That's a big win against KV. That was still a team that they avenged a loss to last season. But it's maybe, we don't want to call it an easier start for Wheeler, but this is a team that they show they could put up points and they could stop you as well.
Well, the thing is, Wheeler lost a lot of guys to graduation this past year, so all of a sudden it's like Coach Testa, he isn't missing a beat with that scoring on offense. And when I saw Coach Testa over the summer. You saw him over the summer. He talked about the skilled players maybe not being as good as last year, and all of a sudden these guys are stepping up and filling in big time. Offensive line, a few guys lost to graduation. Everybody is stepping up and filling in, next man up at Wheeler, and Coach Testa is doing a great job with it.
And still, again, a young team. They got some young guys at some positions. They had a freshman running back who had a fantastic game, and they've been running a sophomore back there as well, and I think a junior quarterback. So this team's not going away anytime soon. We talked about their future schedule. They take on Bishop Knoll at Bishop Knoll. Then they got Boone Grove, who's we talked about as a team that's been struggling as of late. Westside will give them a good test. The game that'll be at Westside. Then they have two favorable, well, not favorable, but a place you'd rather be taking on Calumet in Week 7. You got going to Whiting in Week 8. Then you got Griffith at home in Week 9. Those two games, especially Calumet and Griffith, they may decide the outright GSSE title.
That's right. Now you got them circled on my calendar right here. I circled them. Yes. And it's going to be, those are going to be some fun games.
Yeah, for sure. It'll decide. I mean, I know there's divisions in the conference, but they want the whole thing. And,
that's right.
It may come down to those 2 weeks. Getting into the top 5, Valparaiso finds its way back into the top 5. I believe the place they started the 2025 season. A big win against Lowell, 28-0, a team they've had some success with. And Valpo didn't really do it through the way we are kind of accustomed for them to do it. The rushing attack has been. They've seen better days for Valpo standards, but a new look receiver core as well. And this is a team that had, again, a lot of senior production last year. Now they got to find some new toys for Kellen Hosek to play with, and they did it in this LaPorte game. The top receivers, they all kind of came to play, and these are guys that are only going to get better over the course of the season.
Well, now that the quarterback had some time this week and he was able to set his feet and get the ball downfield, go through his reads, it's going to make the quarterback's job a lot easier. Now all of a sudden, these guys are meshing as they're practicing every time, so it's going to get better for Valpo. it's baby steps when you're trying to install it. When you're going from a run-heavy offense from one year, and all of a sudden you're throwing the ball 30, 40 times a game, it's a big transition for not only the linemen, but also the quarterbacks and receivers. They got to, hey, we're up to bat now. We're going to carry the load, and all of a sudden the running game is going to be secondary.
Those top Vikings to talk about: Jimmy Parisi, Sam Bernard, and Chase Lovig had big games against LaPorte. They also, again, like to throw to their running backs. Gage Finley, although did not do much on the ground, did it more so through the air. I believe he already has over 100 yards receiving. That rushing attack, like I said, 2.9 yards per carry, only 82 rushing yards against LaPorte. Jay, what are your thoughts on, we talk about establishing the run, what about establishing the pass?
Well, you get those linemen starting to pin their ears back and thinking they're coming upfield hard, and draws and screens are really going to work well to slow that down. So I think Valpo's going to have an interesting balance between the run and pass, where it used to be the run first, second down, and then through on third down. And all of a sudden they're going to be throwing the ball. They're going to try and spread those defensive backs out, spread the linebackers out, try and either run behind it or underneath it and get the ball down the field at the same time. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play this out.
New age offensive approaches, man. Who doesn't like it? The top four remains the same, just a little bit of a movement at the 2 and 3 spot, but the number 4 spot stays the same, and that is the 4th-rated Andrean 59ers. A convincing win over Kankakee Valley, 38-8. And this is a team that, although very, very talented, Jay, expected to do a lot of great things at the 2A class. They have a lot of youthful production, and we saw it here last Friday night.
Yeah, great job, great coaching by Coach Skinner, and that just they're starting to gel together, like we talked about. All right, this is week 3. They've been solidified who's in what positions. Now all of a sudden, Andrean's going to be taken to teams, and now that they played the hard part of their schedule, now they're getting into the conference play, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see what this team can do as they progress down through the year.
Ethan Rana, who'll be playing on Saturdays, only a junior, 100-plus rushing yards to his name. Tyler Vo had his best game of the season. He's only a sophomore with 151 receiving yards, including an 89-yard touchdown. Brady Stovall, the junior running back, had 73 yards for 3 touchdowns. A lot of names on this Andrean roster that you'll be seeing not only in these next few high school seasons, but probably at the next level, Jay. The 3rd spot goes to the Maryville Pirates, who they took a 1-spot dip after their loss to Crown Point. And Jay, I guess to recap this first third of the season for Maryville, you cannot have a tougher 3-game stretch than Andrean, who it's hard to believe was for lack of a better term, the easiest matchup in this case. Then you got to take on Loyola Academy. Now you got to take on who ultimately is the top spot in our list, the Crown Point Bulldogs. Your takeaways, I guess, from this first third of the season for Maryville?
Well, now you know where you stand.
Yeah.
Right? Now you know who's going to be playing where. The quarterback especially, he's been playing pretty good through this rough part of the season. Now all of a sudden he's like, okay, we can hang our hat on this. And that's what I think a lot of coaches see, that the tough part of the schedule, and they look and they go, all right, if we can make it through this part of the schedule without a lot of injury, then all of a sudden we're going to take off from this point on, and they're going to build towards that sectional.
I think a lot of wins are to definitely come for this Maryville squad, as talented as they are. And again, they have proven head coach on their sideline with Brad Cease that has seen these tough kind of not early starts to the season when you got Crown Point week 3, but also, again, they schedule very, very tough in those first 2 weeks of the season. Number 2 spot, Hobart and Maryville switch. Hobart takes that 2 spot after a 3-0 start with their win over Munster, 41-7. Jay, arguably the performance of the week will go to Max Pickett of Hobart. 6 touchdowns on 22 carries, 153 yards. Pickett was a guy that was kind of a complimentary back to Willie Shearer. He's been fantastic in his previous 2 seasons, over 500 rushing yards in his sophomore and junior campaigns. But so far, Pickett, he's the star of the show. They got a great supporting cast and a lot of guys around him. But Pickett, they'll line him up in Wildcat. He's a bruiser, and obviously 6 touchdowns on 22 carries. That's quite the ratio.
Yeah, I wish I had him on my fantasy football team.
You and me both, man. You and me both after that first week.
But yeah, he's just a bulldozer, man. He loves contact. He is not a running back that's going to shy away from it. He's going to run to it, and he's going to run you over.
Now, Jay, that said, we kind of talked about it, Wheeler, where their first 3 games, although, again, you got to play who's on your schedule. The strength of record for Hobart, although this is a very talented roster with guys like Alex Tatum, with Pickett, with Bryce Tolliver, who's playing well, Josh Diaz, and plenty of other guys, Logan Peters. This team's very, very solid, but their 3 wins, those taking Maryville off the schedule, which their record might be different, but that's besides the point. Getting off to this 3-0 start, those 3 wins now have a combined record of 1-8. Your thoughts on, again, you got to beat who's on your schedule.
That's right.
And sometimes, that's just how things play out. They did beat 2 Duneland schools en route to this 3-0 start, but interested to see, I guess, in my case, how Hobart, some tougher games will be ahead, and maybe the story of this team gets painted out a little bit more.
Well, I think one of the things that, the coaching staff's going to work on is, hey, we're 3-0, but what comes after the but is the most important part, right? Yeah. And they're going to be talking, hey, we got to keep our heads on, keep our heads on our shoulders. Don't get it, overinflated. We're off to a good start. Now we got conference play coming up. Now we start at 3-0. Let's move into conference and let's continue this undefeated streak, see if we can take it all the way to the house.
And practice is especially fun, and going around town at Hobart when you're 3-0. The Brickies still a very, very solid team under Eric Schreiber Jr. is turning a corner in his second season as head coach. In the top spot, like we said, is the Crown Point Bulldogs. A 3-0 start, their 30th consecutive regular season victory, their 22nd straight in the Duneland. And Jay, I guess I just have one question. When's the last time you've seen kind of this team where, we talked about it in shows of last week of this 1v2 matchup, and
that's right.
It's tough to take a team outside of Crown Point right now in the region. This is the team that is, truth be told, what they got going on there, it's consistent. They punch in and punch out. And Jay, we can hold this team, honestly, from these past 3-4 seasons to some of the best in region football.
That's right. And you reflect back the dynasties of Hobart, under Coach Hall, and then also, you got to, in the same breath, you got to think of the dynasty of Griffith with Coach Rackey there. They're not there yet. They've got a couple more seasons to be at that level, but they're on track to be just like those teams were back in their era.
And I guess there's kind of one thing missing from the puzzle, right? From those dynasties, they at least got to share, some sort of state championship.
That's
at least in that dynasty. The Crown Point made it to the dance, made it to Lucas Oil Stadium, and I'm sure they're itching to get back there. And again, they got all the tools to do it. Again, that 6A class, not one to, think you kind of just walk through and get back to the Circle City.
Well, they practiced it a couple weeks ago, right? When they went to Lafayette Pike, that's right, all the way down to Indianapolis and played. So they got a little warm up, a little taste of how it is to get on the bus and drive down there, 2.5-hour drive. So I think the coaching staff, great job on scheduling that, and then also just the way that they're handling themselves. And you just got to, again, it's one of those things where you got to make sure they just don't get that overinflated ego. Hey, you got the Duneland Conference. They got to play every week.
Don't get complacent, for
that's
sure.
Exactly.
Right?
That's it right there.
Well, that's it for the top 10. We got some games to talk about coming tomorrow night. Some games on the Region Sports Network, and the top games this week. We'll step aside here on Region Football Weekly on the Region Sports Network, the only game in town.
With electrical services from Economy Electric Heating and Cooling, you can radiate the perfect amount of light and energy into your home. From rewiring and code upgrades to ceiling fans, lighting, security, and more, Economy Electric Heating and Cooling's trained electricians will make sure you can enjoy your home on full power all the time. For a free estimate on electrical work, call Economy Electric Heating and Cooling at 219-923-4441, and you can visit them on the web at 4ajobdoneright.com. That's the number 4ajobdoneright.com.
Earn while you learn from the best hands in the business. The Bricklayers Allied Craft Workers for Indiana, Kentucky Apprenticeship. That's right, this is a paid apprenticeship.
I'm getting an education while learning a trade and getting paid for it.
The thing that surprised me the most about this apprenticeship program is the respect I've received after the proper time and training.
Classes start soon, so apply now. There are training centers throughout Indiana and Kentucky. We are the Bricklayers and Allied Craft Workers for Indiana, Kentucky Apprenticeship. The best hands in the business.
Level up your haircut at Level Up Barber Lounge in Highland. With over 30 years of combined experience, walk in today and get treated by some of the best in the business. To book an appointment, call 219-513-9083.
Calling all current and future homeowners in the Northwest Indiana area. Whether you're buying or selling, Brent Wright is here to make your real estate journey smooth and successful. With years of experience, personalized service, and a deep knowledge of the market, Brent will help you find the perfect place or get the best deal for your property. Call today at 219-406-7195 and take the first step toward your real estate goals. Contact Brent Wright, the right way to buy and sell real estate.
Or hit up Big Al, Big C, or Axel at the Booksy app or webpage. Head to Level Up Barber Lounge in Highland for a well-executed cut like a well-executed play. The Athletic Performance Factory is Northwest Indiana's premier. The 40,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility features batting cages, a training room, a new outdoor turf infield, and so much more. Check out the facility for one of their daily classes at 3150 45th Street in Highland. Interested in signing up for team workouts or individual lessons? Check out their website at trainapf.com or contact them at 219-750-1087. Athletic Performance Factory, where athletes are made.
Back here live from Athletic Performance Factory this Thursday evening. Jay Simmons, Mike Dewan, Justin Cole, our producer. Region Football Weekly. Jay, our third and final segment. We'll breeze right through 6 games to talk about, our top games of the week. 4 on the Region Sports Network. But Jay, we'll start it off. The 8th-rated Lowell Red Devils will be heading to Hanover Central to take on the Wildcats. Jay, a very, very interesting game. Hanover Central came into the season in that 9-8 spot in our Hennigenberg Home Improvement Top 10. Lowell obviously coming off their big win against Griffith last week, but a very interesting matchup for Hanover Central. That their 1-2 record does not completely paint the full picture, but Lowell riding high. Hanover Central big win last week over Highland. Initial thoughts on this game?
I think it's going to be closer than people think. I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think Hanover Central, after righting the ship last week, is going to coming in and try and keep that rolling. Conference game. It's going to be a tough one. It's short bus ride for Lowell.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. The community's getting together, and should be a good matchup. Should be Lowell always travels well too.
Definitely, kind of a newfound rivalry between those two a little bit, just geographically. But this has been a matchup kind of since Hanover Central has joined the conference 2 seasons ago. That Hanover Central has had the advantage of 35-0 and then 48-21, both in Hanover Central's favor. But again, it's a new look Hanover Central squad, both on the sidelines and on the field, and same with Lowell. But things are trending in the right direction. A piece to watch out for Hanover Central. We talked about potential uncertainty at the quarterback position last week, though. Wyatt Toole, a junior quarterback, went 6 of 9 for 116 and 2 touchdowns. Jay, any predictions maybe on this one between undefeated teams in the NCC that could very well kind of vouch for that top spot?
I'm going to go with Lowell 24, Hanover Central 17.
Low scoring affair at the Cedar Lake, at the Lake Show, they call it over there. A good one we'll keep our eyes on, to say the least. And a very interesting matchup coming up here. Morton traveling up to the Glove to take on Byron Center, a team they took on last year. They lost that one 54-28. Byron Center, although they're 0-2, this is a team that, they got some pieces returning, but this is no slouch. This team lost in the state finals last year in Division II, which is equivalent to the second highest class in the state of Michigan. This is a team that, again, they're solid. Morton, I think, scheduled very, very well, and although the loss last year, now you got to hop on a bus, Jay, and go up to the Glove. I think you talked about, what was it, 3.5-hour drive?
It's a 3.5-hour drive, so you got to add in the being on a bus. So I'm thinking about 4 hours travel time.
Eastern time too, I think,
4
over
hours,
there.
Yes.
So then, what you've traveled to games, right? You college athlete, right? Of course, by bus. And any tips for those Morton Governors that are hoping to kind of get off the bus and feel like it's a home game?
Well, that's not going to feel like a home game because it's going to be cold up there. 1, and 2. What you do is, if it's a 4-hour bus ride, I would think, if I was a coaching staff, I would split it in two halves. So you go 2 hours, find somewhere to have something to eat, 2 more hours, get the guys out there at least 2 hours before the game, get them to stretch out, walk around, get familiar with the surroundings, check the temperature, all that kind of stuff, sort of look around, and then get the pads on and let's go.
Pack heavy too, right? You never know what weather you can probably see up there during this time. Again, 4 games on the Region Sports Network. Going to be a fun Friday evening. And Jay, all Duneland games as Duneland Conference gets underway. The Portage Indians will travel to take on the Maryville Pirates, coming in at number 3 in our poll. Jay, Portage looking for some sort of momentum, and Maryville looking to bounce back here.
Yeah, definitely. I would not want to be in Portage's shoes right now, because I think Maryville's going to come out a little bit angry. And I think Portage still hasn't gotten their feet under themselves yet, so it's gonna be a rough one for the Portage Indians.
Yeah, they're hoping to just get back on track, find those pieces, and find some young pieces, maybe kind of in this time when things are looking bleak. Really trying to kind of
the one bright,
like you said.
I'm sorry. The one bright spot I saw against Lake Central last week was Portage defense did step up on a couple big 4th down plays and stop Lake Central cold. So it's some positive pieces for Portage right there, and their defense stepping up and playing well. and stopping Lake Central on a couple drives.
Yeah, for Portage, I think got to force some turnovers
That's
and got to hold on to the football against a Maryville defense that we know always year in, year out, they're going to try and take that ball away. Another game on the Region Sports Network, as we mentioned, LaPorte will take on Chesterton. Chesterton looking to bounce back. Two teams coming off of a loss in the Duneland, both 0-1. An interesting matchup here. Reed Raymond has really been a stud for the LaPorte Slicers. He even, although in a losing effort, won the Crowell Company's Lantern Man Superhero of the Game, which is, you would know, that's kind of a rare feat. But
yes, it is.
For Chesterton's sake, heading into this game, what is it kind of like to maybe scheme your defense and kind of prepare to, yes, there's other players on the field for LaPorte, but this is a guy that he's a game breaker. How do you kind of go into that week and, hey, watch out for this guy, wherever he is on the field, let's try and bracket him, or do what we have to do to kind of,
you're always going to find, you're always going to have at least two guys around him. You're saying, I'm going to stop him, and then I'm going to let the other 10 guys beat. That's how, remember back, and this is going on back 100 years, is when Jordan played against the Boston Celtics when he was still young. They said, all right, we're going to let Jordan score his 60, but nobody else is going to score. It's just the opposite of that. We're going to shut him down. We're going to let the other 10 guys win the game for him.
And now the other side of the coin, LaPorte has to probably find some supporting pieces alongside the junior Reed Raymond, a name to look out for in the future, but Chesterton really hoping to bounce back. And who knows, again, the rushing number, especially in the development of Hunter Boyd, the sophomore quarterback, a big one in this one.
Definitely. I think Chesterton's got to find another dimension to their offense.
That's for sure. And again, it'll only get better over time in this young season. Crown Point takes on Lake Central, the top-rated team in our Enningenberg Home Improvement Top 10. Jay, a game that you will be at. Two different dynamics in this one. Yes, two teams that are both 1-0 in their respective conference, but Crown Point once again clicking on all cylinders. Lake Central, great to be back at home in a place that I bet you expect will be rowdy, as always. Two teams that want the win. Should be a good one here.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. I feel that Lake Central is starting to peak in the right direction. They just got to find some pieces offensively to get some points on the board. Their defense is going to do a good job. They're going to hold down Crown Point, but you can only hold the forts for so long. I mean, Lake Central, 1 week, that was the only score that they had was at pick 6 against the team from Grand Rapids. So they've got to find some way, somehow, to keep that defense off the field, because Crown Point, you give them so many chances, they're going to take you to the shed.
And a lot could be said about Crown Point, but yeah, you mentioned this is a team that is imposing, and this is a team that has a track record. And Lake Central, although they may not be the favorite in this one, and you welcome in the Crown Point Bulldogs that are back-to-back Duneland champs. They've won 30 straight regular. You mentally, as a player, prepare for this game, and when you look at a team like Crown Point, and they got guys, they put on the pants every single day, just like I do, one leg at a time. How do you keep that mentality?
I think you got to come in super fired up, but under control. And also, I think your coaching staff has got to say, all right, this is our Super Bowl. We're going to play all the wild cards out there, and this is going to be the biggest game that they have all season. So let's throw the kitchen sink at them.
A game live at Viking Field is the lone top 10 matchup on the Region Sports Network. The number 7 Michigan City Wolves will be at Viking Field to take on the 5th-rated Valparaiso Vikings. Two teams that played each other fairly close last year, 20-14 in favor of Valparaiso. That game was played at Ames Field, and it was a Kellen Hosick performance. He played quite well, 10 of 18 for 173, 2 touchdowns. Completed passes to only seniors, again, Julian Stokes and Austin McKenzie.
And there were some great receivers.
Some great receivers that we've talked about earlier in the show. They're starting to kind of peak and get better at the right time. Treniston Hart last year, 212 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That was kind of, a big part in the game. Leading receiver in the area who will be back, Zaire McKinney, 3 catches for 100 and a touchdown. Jay, for cameramen out there for that game, especially our own, prepared for the pass. Although Michigan City has that kind of other element to the offense where they keep guys fresh and they keep that defense kind of on their heels.
Well, definitely. And one thing they want to do is keep Valparaiso's offense off the field. So if they can sustain drives and run the ball, they're going to do it, because they proved it last week that they can run the ball just as well as they throw. And I think this is going to determine who's in sort of the driver's seat of the second level. All right, you got Maryville, Crown Point. Now all of a sudden, all right, who's going to take that next level and see who's going to take the driver's seat in that next level in the Duneland Conference. It's going to be a great matchup right here.
All right. Pretty similar offensive styles. City kind of has maybe the advantage in the rushing game, although Valparaiso defense that has kind of the pedigree and they're they're able to force turnovers and potentially, put on, good 4 quarters. But Jay, any predictions on this one?
I'm going to write it down. I'm going to go in the upset. Well, on the road victory, I'm going to go Michigan City 34-27.
Good game over there.
That's
Book
right.
it. Predictions in the book. That's all we have in terms of content on Region Football Weekly. Jay, any final thoughts? A great 4-game slate for us on the Region Sports Network, along with some more. We'll talk about more content of ours. But Jay, week 4, man, let's get to it.
Yeah, let's get to it. It's going to be an exciting weekend, and it's going to be a fun weekend. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to see some teams start to separate a little bit, especially in the conferences. So it's going to be fun to see how this all shakes out.
That's why we do it here, ladies and gentlemen. For Jay Simmons, for Mike Dewan, that's all we have on Region Football Weekly. Again, a 4-game slate tomorrow before we go. We also have the Strachan Van Til Hometown Scoreboard running with in-game live updates. We'll also have a studio presence with the RSN, the Region Sports Football Tailgate Show, and the Region Sports Football Wrap-Up Show, and the in-game studio coverage with RSN Zone back in action this week. For Jay Simmons, for Mike Dewan, Justin Cole, and the RSN family, have a great Thursday evening. This has been Region Football Weekly on the Region Sports Network, the only game in town.
Hi, my name is Mark Macknick. I'm the owner of Mark Macknick CPA firm in Highland, Indiana on Kennedy Avenue. I've been working with Region Sports for years now. Started working with Chris years ago, just on some special projects, advertising here and there. After a while, kind of increased the advertising. Mainly was doing it for the community involvement. It's such a great network and program they do with the high school sports. But as time went by, I started getting on there more frequently, and then the phone starts ringing, and I was getting calls all the time from people. Hey, I saw your ad on so-and-so football game. I saw your ad on a basketball game. And it's really helped my business. It's increased the volume. We're a tight community in Northwest Indiana, sports-wise, and just a lot of community involvement. So that's mainly why I got into it. I remember watching one game. It was a basketball game, and I think there was a little bit of an altercation. And as the altercation was happening, my ad was right on the bottom, and someone typed in, "I wonder what Mark Macknick's thinking right now." And I was thinking, wow, this is awesome. It's really been a great feature for my business. It's the only advertising I do. I don't advertise anywhere else other than Region Sports. It's for the business, but mainly for the involvement with the community. I played high school baseball here in Highland, and ever since I've been advertising on Region Sports, a lot of my old coaches are now my clients. A lot of my old teammates come in here. My recommendation, if you're a business here in Northwest Indiana, I think Region Sports is, for your money, it's one of the best places that you can advertise. I mean, I can advertise on billboards. I could do anywhere I want to. And I choose Region Sports mainly because I get a lot of feedback, especially on the high school level. A lot of the parents, if they can't make a game, they're watching it online. They're watching a replay, the grandparents. So it's done wonders for my business, and it's my go-to for advertising. It's the only spot I would. If you're a business owner in the area, really look into advertising on Region Sports. It's going to be well worth your money, and you'll make tenfold on what you're spending. Region Sports Network, they're the only game in town, but they're more than just a game.